that you wander far from me. I wanna feel you in my arms again. And you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love, then you softly lay. And it's me you need to show how deep is your love. 'Cause I really need to learn. 'Cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me, and I believe in you, 'cause you know the door to my very soul. And you're the light in my deepest and my darkest hour. You're my savior when I fall. And you may not think that I care for you when you know down inside that I really do. And it's me you need to show how deep is your love. 'Cause I really need to learn. 'Cause we're living in a world of fools, and they are breaking us down when they all should. They should just let us be. Baby, I believe in you. You know the door to my very soul. Tell me how deep is your love, yeah. Tell me how deep is your love.
Down the street and I start to cry each time we meet. Walk on by, walk on by. Make believe that you don't see the tears, just let me grieve in private, 'cause each time I see you I break down and cry. Just walk on by. Walk on by, walk on by. I just can't get over losing you, and so if I seem broken in two, walk on by, walk on by. Foolish pride is all that I have left, so let me hide the tears and the sadness you gave me when you said goodbye. Just walk on by, just walk on by, walk on by. is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore. Love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Do in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore. Love L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore. Love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Love was made for me and you. Love was made for me and you. For me and you. Love was made for me and you. For me and you. Love was made for me and you. Waited till I saw the sun. Don't know why I didn't come. I left you by the house of fun. Don't know why I didn't come. I don't know why I didn't come. When I saw the break of day, I wish that I could fly away. Instead of kneeling in the sand, catching teardrops in my hand. My heart is stretched and wide, but you'll be on my mind forever. Out across the endless sea, I will die
Recording in progress.
Ya podéis. Ya ha empezado.
Programs. It was started in Indonesia in 2006 and was launched by Larry Campbell, president of ICVI at the time. This program was fully supported by the Nippon Foundation, one of ICVI international partners. The reason why ICVI and the Nippon Foundation developed higher education program in East Asia region was that for decades, campaigns and advocacy upon inclusive education were only done for primary and secondary education. At the same time, young people with visual impairment as community asset should also or could also continue studying to university. Before having higher education implemented in ICVI regional partners, students with visual impairment who studying in university had to struggle very difficult on their own. Universities did not have the awareness and sense of responsibility that they should provide reasonable accommodation for students with visual impairment. If students obtain services, usually these services came from resource centers that dedicated for them. Ladies and gentlemen, this situation, of course, had significant impact towards students with visual impairment. Only few of them could continue and finish studying in higher education because studying in university is very, very challenging for them. When higher education program was implemented in Indonesia in the first year, ICVI and its local partners, they were Pertuni, the Indonesian Blind Union, as well as the Mitra Netra Foundation. These parties decided to pioneer the program in two big cities in Indonesia. They were Jakarta and Bandung. Within these two cities, This program established the Disabled Student Service Centers in selected universities partners. The function of this service center was providing assistive technology devices and equipment to support the independence of students with visual impairment in proceeding their study in university. Because of the availability of these assistive technology devices and equipment, students with visual impairment were able to get access to books or references. They were able to finish and submit their assignments, including thesis, on time. And for sure, they were able to finish their degree on time as well. After succeeding in implementing higher education program in those two cities in Indonesia, then ICVI and the Nippon Foundation decided to extend the program to other cities throughout Indonesia, as well as to other countries throughout East Asia region. Currently, after 15 years of the program implementation, higher education program reached 7 countries in East Asia region. They are Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos PDR, Myanmar, and Mongolia. Ladies, gentlemen, friends, and colleagues, we have proven that higher education had succeeded to encourage parents to bring their children with visual impairment to school. We convince parents that bringing their children with visual impairment to school is very important, very valuable, and very useful, because after finishing school, children with visual impairment could continue studying to university. And the impact of this situation is that young people with visual impairment might be able to have more job opportunities in the future. This situation, of course, increased the number of students with visual impairment who enrolled in universities in the countries where this program has been implemented. For Indonesia, higher education program had succeeded to encourage the government to develop policies in inclusive education. It started by the issue of the Ministry of Education regulation on inclusive higher education. Then the government brought the mandate of inclusive higher education to stronger and higher level of education by inserting the mandate into the new disability law of Indonesia, law number 8 of 2016. We were very grateful that the Nippon Foundation has such strong commitment to fully support this program. And since 2015, higher education program had started to reach the area of employment, the next challenging area after education. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite my colleague from Vietnam, asking him to share their achievement through the implementation of higher education. Đặng Hoài Phúc, the Executive Director of Sao Mai Computer Center for the Blind, Vietnam. Phúc, please, time is yours.
Thanks, Arya. Hi, everyone. Continuing from Arya's presentation, I would like to share with you our higher education related work in 3 main areas. Number 1, accessible academic materials production. Number 2, technology application for more job opportunities. And number 3, regional collaboration programs as examples of the effectiveness of the partnerships. First, about the academic materials production. From the beginning, The project recognized that to provide accessible materials for visually impaired students and to do so on time and in the formats that met their needs was one of the key factors we needed to address. The question then was, how do we collect requested book titles, create an effective workflow to produce the titles, and efficiently distribute them to the students? This all needed to be considered carefully from the start. We reached out to both direct and indirect beneficiaries. This included developing a network to connect blind students with each other while simultaneously working with university, the Ministry of Education, and organizations of and for the blind. This was done not only to collect book titles, but also to strengthen many other important activities of the project, such as raising awareness, promoting public policy changes, and conducting training activities. We developed an online library where both students, university faculty can request an accessible version of a book and download it. I am happy to say that today there are several other organizations in Vietnam producing accessible books. Therefore, we regularly share out catalog and our to-do book list so that we avoid any wasteful duplication of effort. In terms of the accessible materials production workflow, we have a team assigned for that work, and we also use volunteers to support certain steps in the process. The main production tasks include scanning and recognizing text, editing and proofreading, conversion into accessible formats, and a quality check before final release. Book formats include audio, DAISY, EPUB, large print, and Braille. In our efforts to both improve materials production and support visually impaired students, we have also developed new software such as the Sao Mai Braille used to edit and translate text, math, tactile graphics, and music into Braille. The SM Music Reader app to help reading music scores. It's the first fully accessible music reading app for both Android and iOS platforms, useful not only for the blind, but also for the sighted. We are grateful to the Nippon Foundation and the Overbrook School for the Blind for the funding support to develop these two software products. The important role of existing technology is clearly proved by these efforts. Now, let me share with you some other project activities that we have undertaken to promote equal access to higher education and to increase job opportunities for visually impaired graduates. Throughout a year, we regularly conduct a range of technology trainings for different groups of blind students, including high school students to prepare them for entrance into the higher education, current enrolled students to learn about and/or update them on latest existing technology tools to empower and improve their academic performance. And for job seekers, which might include both currently enrolled and graduate students, we help them master technology skills related to their specific job requirements. We believe that soft skills training is essential to improve capacity in both inclusive education and in job settings. So we often conduct trainings and related activities such as independent living skills, preparation for employment, and real life experiences. In addition to traditional job in mainstream companies, we have developed on-site job trainings in cooperation with employers such as telesales, online marketing, customer support service, etc. We also conduct trainings for students who want to be self-employed through online work. Technology applications are always a key part of our trainings related to job preparation. Over the past few years, we have successfully referred and placed hundreds of blind job seekers in employment in various mainstream sectors, such as working in insurance companies, call centers, sales, software development, etc. Finding a job is a challenge, but job retention can also be a challenge for some. In recognition of this factor, we have built close relationship with both visually impaired employees and their employers to provide any support and consultation that may be needed. The last point I would like to share with you is the development of the Myanmar TTS, text-to-speech engine. The Nippon Foundation, Overbrook International, and the ICEVI Higher Education Project have fostered many regional level collaborations, and the Myanmar TTS development is one of them. As you know, a text-to-speech engine is a core technology to be used with screen reading software to provide speech for visually impaired computer users. So with this first Myanmar's TTS release, all blind users in Myanmar now have barrier-free access to read and write documents in the Burmese language. The TTS that we have developed was done through great teamwork and runs on both Android and Windows platforms. I think I should read few quotes from the beneficiaries rather than talking more about its features or technical things. However, before that, I would like to briefly introduce supporters and partners of this project. On behalf of the development team, we extend sincere thanks to the Nippon Foundation, ICEVI, and Overbrook International Program. The project was implemented with the collaboration of teams from Myanmar and Vietnam, including Sao Mai Center for the Blind from Vietnam, in charge of technical solutions and software coding, Myanmar Association of the Blind, testing and conducting trainings for end users, Myanmar Assistive Technology Research and Development Center, working with Burmese language specialists, providing data, testing, and distributing the product. Daejeon University, University of Computer Studies of Yangon and Mandalay, and other individuals for their language consultation and data sharing. Before closing my presentation part, I would like to read 3 short quotes from the direct beneficiaries of the TTS that again demonstrate the value of cross-border partnerships. First quote from Alex Visa Nara, commented via our SM Myanmar TTS site on Google Play Store. Quote, "We have been waiting for this application so long. Now it comes true." End quote. The second quote. "My name is Tan Thai from Himidai School for the Blind, Yangon. I graduated as a history major at Western University, Yangon. This Myanmar TTS application promotes the use of Android phones, even for those who did not have chance to attend school. Before this application was released, our blind community in Myanmar was so small, but now we can communicate and explore throughout the world as we do not have language barrier anymore." End quote. And the third quote from Ms. An Chen On, who graduated from the Mandalay University of Foreign Languages, majoring in English linguistics, and who is currently working as a freelance translator. Quote, "I couldn't be able to work like this without Burmese TTS. It has brought me not only language accessibility, but also independence and confidence. So my heartfelt thanks go to each and everyone who has contributed to the development of this TTS." End quote. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation and thank you for your interest and attention.
Thank you very much, Phúc, for sharing with us your achievements through higher education program, which had been implemented in Vietnam. It was very fantastic. Now I would like to invite another ICVI Higher Education Program country partner, RBI, Resources for the Blind from the Philippines. Amy Mojica, the Executive Director of RBI, and Marlo Lucas, one of RBI team who responsible to coordinate higher education program in the Philippines. Amy and Marlo, please, time is yours now.
Thank you very much, Arya. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody, no matter where you are right now. I am Ami Mojica from Resources for the Blind Incorporated from the Philippines, and together with my colleague, Mr. Marlo Lucas, we'll be sharing with you all the tremendous work done by ICVI in our country. I want to touch briefly on the impact of ICVI in our organization, in particular how ICVI helped us build and develop a long-term partnership with national and local government agencies in the Philippines. Then Mr. Marlo Lucas will talk about the components of our higher education program in the Philippines. Let's begin. 1998, when we started our partnership with the Nippon Foundation. Back then, we worked with 78 college students from 28 state colleges and universities nationwide. Through the years, we can proudly say that ICVI not only empowers students, but as well as our organization. We learned so much from ICVI, but I can share two important elements that help us attract partnership and sustain services that we are providing. One is engagement and connection. Once we started, we become the voice of the students. That means we must advocate and engage our target audience. Our target audience must know what we can offer to them and how we can help them. Who are our target audience? Our target audience are, of course, the students and their families, the teachers and professors, the school administrators, and other service providers in the community who can support our students. As a result, we managed to convince people's disability group, like the Advocates for Visually Impaired, the People's Disability Affairs Office, and local provinces and municipalities, the National Council for Disability Affairs Office, which is a national government agency, and of course, the Student Support Group. We have strengthened our partnership with government institutions in charge of education, like the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, and the Department of Science and Technology, in particular the Science Education Institute. When we focus on employment, we work with the Department of Labor and Employment and the PESO local office in provinces and municipalities. For advocacy, we have managed to work with the Commission on Human Rights and the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines and private institutions like IBM. Other BPO offices that we work with are Accenture, Sutherland, and we do have Global Solutions. Second is scaling up. Through the guidance of ICVI leaders, especially during the preparations of proposals, and from the regular monitoring and evaluations conducted, we identified activities that we should grow larger or increase or enhance. Activities that can be supported by local partners and transferred to them, and activities within the programs that needs more nurturing. From prioritizing to strategy setting, we replicated our activities and secure funding locally. For example, the STEM teacher education. It is now being implemented by the Department of Science and Technology under the Science Education Institute. We started this training with the Department of Education Then it catches the attention of the OST, or the Department of Science and Technology. They observed us during the science camp, and the following year, they provided the budget. Now, the OST is fully in charge of this activity, introducing the STEM curriculum produced by ICEBI nationwide. The other example is the Computer Ice Camp, which used to be entirely funded by ONET and ICEBI, is now 75% funded by IBM Philippines. We used to conduct it in Manila, but to increase the participants, we are now providing it to Visayas and Mindanao regions face-to-face or online. To conclude, to be successful in working with partners, we need to learn to maintain engagement and connections with people and organizations who can help influence our communities, our society. They need to know our program outcomes, the challenges that we are encountering, and how they can participate. We also learn to regularly evaluate our program to determine what growth needs, what activity can be transferred and delivered to partners, and what needs further nurturing. This is important as we continue to advocate the educational rights of children with blindness and low vision. Everyone is entitled to education, and everyone is entitled to continuing education. Education empowers us to change our lives, and we can work together to make it happen for all children who are blind or low vision. Thank you very much for listening. I now introduce my friend, Mr. Marlo Lucas, to continue our presentation. Marlo, please.
Pleasant day to everyone. Today, I will be sharing with you how Resources for the Blind Incorporated, or RBI, works for the higher education programs toward attaining an inclusive job market in the Philippines and coping up in the COVID-19 pandemic, supported by the Nippon Foundation through the International Council for Education of People with Visual Impairment, or ICVI, with a goal in expanding educational access and full inclusion in higher education with visual impairment. Just so you know, massage is the #1 job for people who are blind in our country. Most of them work in decent clinics, in shopping centers, and institutions, or in places accessible by the public. New opportunities arise with the beginning of business process outsourcing, or BPO, in 1992, and 3 years after Congress passed in the Philippine Economic Zone Authority. As a result, this has opened many doors for international BPOs in the country. Consequently, many young people who are blind and low vision are proficient on the use of computer with the help of screen reader. So thank you to our partners, our Brook Nippon Network on Educational Technology, ONNET, and the IBM Philippines for funding our Computer Ice Camp, which began in 2001. So how the higher education program started in the Philippines? As mentioned by Ms. Mojica, in 2008, few blind students are pursuing higher education, and they mainly follow traditional courses such as education and social work courses. Colleges and universities at that time were hesitant to accommodate visually impaired students at their schools. So we listened to students and their families, their desires and challenges, but could not enroll in the universities and take the degree of their choice. We also engage and connect. RBI began writing to colleges and universities advocating for right to education of these learners. The tagline of SDG Making It Right were adopted in the trainings conducted for colleges and universities entitled Making It Work, Educating visually impaired student in your classroom. Content mainly focuses on making the curriculum accessible, which were presented by successful students, professors, and demonstration. Gradually, we notice an increase of enrolled students in different universities and colleges. And we model Student Resource Center. RBI, through the ICBI project, set up several student center to which students secure accessible learning materials and receive technical support on the use of assistive technology. Teachers, professors, and other service providers also utilizes the center to effectively support the students who are blind and low vision. After sending them to school, we must then ensure that they will be able to obtain employment. The Philippine Republic Act 7277, a Magna Carta for persons with disabilities, guarantees the capacitating and inclusion of blind and low vision into the mainstream society by stressing the importance of the rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance. Some of its noteworthy efforts in improving the employment opportunities, including the development and implementation of training programs, the allocation of jobs in many government agencies, and the provision of attractive incentives to private entities who will hire persons with disabilities. The COVID-19 crisis has disproportionately affected persons with disabilities, in particular, those who are visually impaired, as they are among those who have been displaced next following the closure of the employment downsizing of some industries in the Philippines. On the other hand, students in basic and higher education in both public and private institutions were confronted with the demand to have personal assistive devices and to be eligible in technologies as classes shifted from face-to-face to modular and online classes. Seeing this reality, the RBI and its partners strive to surpass the barriers of the pandemic outbreak. Online platforms for trainings and seminars were the only option left to pursue interventions. Fortunately, adopting such platforms was no longer took a lengthy transition period due to the fact that most youth who are blind and low vision have already increased their technological orientation by participating to several RBI, ICBI, and on-net activities. Being said these challenges, our student can still opt to choose whatever is available learning modalities provided by the schools, so they can continue their studies during pandemic. Employment at the peak of the pandemic was still possible, and it's advantageous to some visually impaired. Some employers are also committed to helping people with visual impairment to obtain gainful employment with their own companies. Our long-standing partner of Resources for the Blind and this employment advocacy, their business is always ready to hire people with vision loss. In fact, their Assistant Vice President in Human Resources Department is reassuring that persons with visual impairment may apply at the company anytime and very willing to outsource the list of openings to RBI. This assurance resulted in the desire of some visually impaired persons to apply to their company, resulting in the hiring of 3 visually impaired persons. And I want to share with you the collective praises of our visually impaired who were hired during the pandemic. And it is truly a blessing to have had gainful employment, especially at the height of the pandemic, by which everyone is economically affected. And here are testimonies of our past trainees. It's quite empowering having a regular job in the comfort of my own home. Another benefit I get is that I feel dignified with the difficulty of schooling that I had been through. Next is right now that I am already employed, I feel that I am able to use my skills. I feel that I am able to help, that I am able to contribute to the society, and that I am able to help other people, especially to the company and to the blind people like me in making a difference. I also feel that having this work gives me purpose in life and that I am able to fulfill my dreams and goals in life to help and contribute to other things and to other people. And I would like to conclude my remarks with a quote from one of the visually impaired who has inspired many of our country's visually impaired. And according to Abdulaziz Tapilin, graduated cum laude, now a blind sped teacher in Zamboanga City, COVID is a test of COVID with the acronym choices, opportunities, versatility, innovation, and determination. Choices make up who we are. Opportunities are not to be waited. It is created. Versatility helps us to adjust to challenging situations. Innovations enables us to take the opportunities. A determination will enable us to continue, although it may seem difficult. Now is not the time to surrender or to give up. The complexity and challenges of COVID-19, which continue to challenge us, have put us all to the test in ways we never anticipated or even thought possible. However, Resources for the Blind and its partner organizations have approached the situation with positivity, creativity, and determination to put programs and systems safely back into operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy and Marlo, for your inspiring presentation. Ladies, gentlemen, colleagues, and friends, developing inclusive higher education system needs such long time. It could not happen only in several weeks or months. It took years. It took years for us until we have the government regulations and law. And it took years for us to see the impact of this program towards students with visual impairment. Once again, we would like to sincerely thank to the Nippon Foundation for this fully support for higher education program in East Asia region. As the moderator of this session, I also would like to thank you all for participating in this session. I hope this is very valuable for you all. Let's keep doing good works for our younger generation with visual impairment to make schools and universities become inclusive place to study. Thank you. All right. Ladies, gentlemen, and colleagues, we just listened to a video presenting how ICVI higher education program had been implemented in Southeast Asia region, especially in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. Now, we still have one more resource person within this webinar. He comes from Spain. He's a university professor, Professor Rafael Carvalho Delgado. He's going to present how higher education access for students with visual impairment in Spain. Professor Rafael Carvalho, please, time is yours, and your time allocation is 15 minutes.
Hola a todos.
Hello, everyone, and
Thank you very much, Aria, for the presentation. And thank you to all the organizers of this wonderful event for having me to share my research and my experience as well with all of you. So I would like to share with you this slideshow, this presentation, where you will see what I will talk about. Many of my colleagues have already mentioned the access and the enhancements that are necessary to achieve full inclusion of students with visual disability at the university. In Spain, the situation is not that different. Indeed, most of the data show that most students with visual disability share the same difficulties in all higher education centers. And the same goes for everywhere in the world. These programs that you have presented are quite interesting. And as you all know, there is a key element or a main character, we could say, in universities so that this inclusion is indeed effective. And these persons are professors. University professors have a fundamental role in these inclusion processes at universities. And it is precisely about them that I would like to refer to.
So, students, not just visually impaired students, but other types of disabled students, find universities, find different barriers at university that make their studies more difficult than for other mainstream students. Let's say, for example, some infrastructures are not accessible at all or are not properly adapted, materials may not be adapted, methodologies might not be very inclusive or promoting participation. In the classroom, there's lots of bureaucracy and lack of sensitivity or of awareness on the part of the university community or the professors or the trainers. So if we focus on the teachers, on the professors, visually impaired students tend to say that they find certain negative attitudes on the part of the teachers. The teachers themselves are not so aware of disability-related regulations, which is the case of Spain, for example. There's a specific regulation for the treatment of disability at university, and quite often teachers are not aware of that. Teachers do not know either the services that are available for this sort of students, which is also the case of Spain, which is quite well equipped with services, both for students and for teachers with disabilities. But on many occasions, teachers themselves are not aware of those services provided by their universities. And mainly, there's a lack of training or knowledge on how to develop inclusive education, on how to adapt their methods and resources to disabled students, or students with disabilities. In this situation, my research team started working. We gathered different researchers belonging to different fields of knowledge coming from different universities in Spain. We work on studying the experiences of disabled students at university. And we're not talking just about visually impaired students, but all sorts of students with disabilities. So with tried to follow logic since 2011, when we started with our our first big project. 4 years duration, and the project was called Barriers and Assistance, that disabled students identify at university. We interviewed 44 students with disabilities, among them many with visual impairment to a bigger or lesser degree. Some of them were even blind. And we tried to get to know the difficulties and the assistance that they were finding at the university as an institution. The data were key, and they followed the lines of other research projects that had been carried out internationally. Apart from that, the students said that there was a serious lack of training on the part of the faculty or the teachers. Some teachers said that it was not their competence or the responsibility to adapt the contents or to adapt to these students. Some others did not show very constructive attitudes, and some others even rejected the possibility of these students using technological solutions or recording the class on a recorder. So the teachers themselves were being a barrier for the learning of students with disabilities. So as a result of those results, research results, we decided to design, to develop, and to assess, to evaluate a training program for university teachers so that they could be trained on how to provide an inclusive response to students with disabilities. And there you've got the project toward social inclusion and educational inclusion at university. So we started a project, 6 months, 6-month duration, that trained the teachers on the basis of inclusive education on how to develop materials for these students on how to apply the universal design for learning. Then we started our current project, the one we are about to finish right now. Once we knew the opinion of the students, and once we had catered for the needs for training on the part of the faculty, we paid attention to quite an ignored aspect of research related to disability. Traditionally, the focus tends to be on the needs of the students. But we were interested in getting to know whether there were teachers that were inclusive, were actually inclusive, were designing an inclusive pedagogy and worried about the integration of students with disability. That was our motivation for our third project, namely inclusive pedagogy at university. The stories of the faculty. We wanted to know why teachers developed an inclusive methodology at university and how they did it. How did we contact those teachers? Well, first of all, we contacted the assistance services for students with disabilities. We're talking about 10 Spanish universities. So we asked those services to share with all the disabled students at the university the information on our project, asking those students to provide us with the names of those teachers, or the contacts of those teachers that had a positive influence on their academic development, namely those teachers that were about applying inclusive methodologies. So after all that process, 109 teachers in total participated in the project, coming from different Spanish universities and representing virtually all fields of knowledge, even technical fields and other fields that are particularly difficult for students with disabilities. Once we had selected our teachers, we follow a qualitative methodology, and we interviewed individually teachers on both occasions. First interview focused on their beliefs and their knowledge. The second interview focused on how they design and how they acted in order to promote the inclusion of students with disabilities. So we got the following results, which were quite interesting from the point of view of inclusive teachers. On the one hand, we need to focus on the first time these teachers had a student with disability in the classroom. The first time they had that experience, those teachers had that experience, they resorted to the assistance services of the university so that they could assess them, they could advise them on how to adjust their class to those students. But that very first time was also the occasion for those teachers to realize that they did not have enough knowledge on how to provide a response to that situation, to those students. One of the teachers, as it can be seen in the quote that I'm providing there, they said, the first time I had a visually impaired student, especially during the exam, I felt that I lacked knowledge and tools, that I was not aware of the needs of the students. But over time, these teachers were realized what the needs of those students were, and that they had to cater for all sorts of students. So here you can also see the adjustments, or how those teachers adapted their materials. At the beginning of the academic year, these teachers tried to get to know the student in question and then decide on how to adapt. First of all, the teacher needs to ask the student what their needs are so that they can adjust the class and these students can learn properly. Then the teacher needs to be flexible and needs to offer all the contents that the student needs to overcome that disability during learning. So inclusive teachers say that they tend to go for inclusive teaching methods, namely teaching that promotes social inclusion within the group for those students with disabilities. And besides that, especially for visually impaired students, teachers should provide all the materials in advance for those visually impaired students so that they can adjust the content in time to follow the course. Also, the format for those students is very important. Regarding the evaluation, inclusive teachers go for a flexible evaluation, an open-minded, let's say, attitude. So when teachers tell us about their experience with visually impaired students, they said that it would be great if there could be digital accessible materials compatible with screen readers that are easily compatible with tags or image readers, or even adaptation to Braille, as the ONCE, the blind organization in Spain, does very well. Regarding the teaching method, it was also commented that the visually impaired student should be on the front row, very near to the teacher, very near the teacher. Then promoting cooperation is very important, promoting assisting technology. And regarding evaluation, apart from offering continuous or evaluation, to adapt the format of the exam. For example, there could be a choral exam or a computer-based exam or an exam that which is previously adapted to Braille. And last but not least, those teachers share certain recommendations with other teachers that might be interesting in adapting to this reality. First of all, to get information on their students with special needs, then resort to the services of the university, then to be open-minded and to be available for those students and their needs, and then to appreciate the effort of those students when evaluating them. And then many teachers design their teaching on the basis of the so-called universal design of learning. For example, multiple forms of action and representation using different formats for content, from audio descriptive, audio visual materials, digital materials, and multiple formats for action and expression, namely allowing students to use the formats that they prefer so as to develop their activities and works, namely to adapt their methodology, their teachings, their resources to cater for the needs of students with disabilities. And that can only be done by asking the student themselves, so that the subject can be easier to learn for disabled students, and then follow the steps shared with them by the students. I hope that this study was interesting to you, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Rabal Carvalho, for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, we just listened to information shared from two different corners of the world. How struggle had been made to make higher education more accessible for students with visual impairment. First corner is from East Asia region, and the other corner is from Europe. Now, it's time for me to entertain you with question and answer session. So if you have question, please, for you who would like to convey your question directly, please raise your hand and open your microphone. And if you would like to share your question in written question, please write your question in chatting column, and my colleagues will help me to, my friend will help me to read the question. Is there someone who raised hand would like to ask question?
4 participants who have raised their hand.
Please.
Shall we call Miss Socorro Quintana, please?
Yes, please. And please mention your name and your question is to whom your question is addressed to. No? Is there any written question in chatting column?
There is Arya, but it's in Spanish. Maybe someone can help us in translate it into English.
Okay.
We have several hands has raised. We have Miss Socorro Quintana, Miss Stephanie Mary, Anil Aneja, Gabi, Michael Remundo, and Gipari. They raised their hand. Maybe they have some questions.
Yeah, but it's not in English, unfortunately.
We could provide you with interpretation into English of the question from a Braille editor from Taco, Argentina. We would like to know how the camps went for the technological training for blind people and people with low vision.
Okay, good. I think is there someone who could help us translate the Spain question into English?
If Rafael can translate it to us, no?
Yes, I can. I can try.
Please.
Let me try. They are asking which one are the employees, the jobs, more usual for people with visual impairments. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think what kind of job is usually done for people with visual impairment? I think hopefully my interpretation is correct. So let me ask maybe Marlo from the Philippines answer this question first, and then Phúc from Vietnam answer also this question. So we would like to have more information from the Philippines and from Vietnam as well. Marlo, please. Hi, Marlo. Can you hear me? Marlo. Okay, Phúc, are you here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Could you please answer first?
Sure.
Yes, please.
For your question, as Marlo already mentioned in his presentation about the most popular job that the blind people are working, I think same in Philippines, in Vietnam, we also have the massage jobs are the most popular one. But since we implemented the higher education, and more blind, more visually impaired people attending the university, higher education, so more job opportunities are coming in. For example, now many blind people working at like for example, telesales or customer support service, some kind of online online work, like online marketing or something like that, or even they can do some kind of self-employed business.
All right. Even I heard that someone from Vietnam currently work as a programmer in Grab office in Singapore. Is that correct, Phúc?
Yeah, that's right. When he finished the university, and he's now working as the software engineer at the Apple company in
Yeah.
Singapore.
So
Yeah.
yes, that's fantastic. It means that access to higher education had opened up more job opportunities for younger people with visual impairment in Vietnam. Marlo, Marlo, are you there? Or Ami, maybe could you please answer question?
Lost Marlo, it's raining very hard right now in the area. But
Yeah.
just like in Vietnam, previously most work by our friends who are blind or low vision is massage. But right now, most of them are in offices as a call center agent. They have some of them, they put up their own business. And then others are sales, psychology, social worker from a government institution. But most that I know are from teaching in a government institution. So teaching, social work, psychology, business, call center, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So the same as Vietnam. So now young people with visual impairment have more job opportunities to do. And this is because of the result of our effort to make higher education more open to students with visual impairment. I think in my country, in Indonesia, also the situation quite the same, that situation is currently developing. We have more young people with visual impairment working in government sectors, and even we have more young people with visual impairment working in companies as digital content writer, for example, or telemarketing, telesales, and also they develop their own business as a website developer, for example, or as consultant, accessible technology consultant, also now become more open for people with visual impairment. So hopefully this information answered the question. Thank you. Next, is there any other question? Maybe for Professor Rafael. Is there any question for Professor Rafael in Spain? You can read and please answer the question.
I think you have another question in English for you.
Oh, okay. Ami, could you please read
Yes.
the English question?
Yeah. They want to know how the technology training comes for blind and low vision people went.
Okay, about technology training for blind and low vision people. Okay, I think from your presentation, you have mentioned a little bit, Marlo and Phúc, but please, maybe you can add more. Phúc, you can add more information on technology training for people with visual impairment in Vietnam.
Yeah, as in my presentation about the technology training for blind students or visually impaired students, we have different groups. We have different objectives for different group of students. For example, we prepared the technology skills for fresh students. I mean that the first year student or high school students, so they can prepare for the entrance into the higher education. And we also have the trainings, technology trainings for the groups that they are currently enrolled at a university, because we want to update them with the latest technology skills to help them improve their academic performance, and the other group that is for the job seekers, especially for the students, 4-year students. I mean that the student at the 4-year of the university program, as well as the graduate students. We focus on providing them the technology related skills which the job their job required, you know. So we focus on different kind of groups.
Yeah. Do you also provide in job training which is related with technology? For example, if someone had been accepted in one company and the company asks the person to upgrade his or her technology skill, and then is it possible that Sao Mai Computer Center also provides support for this need?
Yeah. We still support for that as well. For example, we have the on-site training, job training. So the employers work with us to arrange such kind of trainings to provide for their visually impaired employees, as well as after they work at the company. We also keep connected with both the employees and the employers. So if they need any consultation or support, we will provide on time.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Ami, could you please add more information about technology training in the Philippines?
In the Philippines, we invite young people coming from secondary and college students, incoming college students, to join for a 2-week computerized camp. We call it computerized. We divide the group into two. There's a basic curriculum, and then there's an advanced curriculum. For basic curriculum, same content as mentioned by Pu, using computer. Basically, the objective is to develop the skills so that they can access their curriculum, their secondary curriculum. Some of the topics includes, of course, using PowerPoint because for the presentation, and accessing other materials using technology. Then we have an advanced group. The advanced group is basically for college students and for those who are needing the use of assistive technology to secure employment. Aside from the use of technology, soft skills are also included in the training so that they can actually use the skills on using assistive technology, and then at the same time the soft skills. And for in the Philippines, we also use the program by IBM, the Skill Build, that focus mainly how do you say it? Mainly consists on soft skills using technology, technology, and then at the same time answering questions that relates to developing their self-awareness, their other soft skills that they needed for employment, future employment.
So you add soft skill within the technology training to make students be more ready to go to find job inclusively. All right, that's interesting. Thank you, Ami and Fu, for answering the question. Is there any other question? No more? We still have, I think, about 15 minutes more. If you would like to make use the time to ask more question, or maybe comment, or maybe you guys would like to share your own experience working with students with visual impairment. in university?
Sorry, Aria.
Yes, please.
We have more questions in the chat. So I'm gonna answer the question for me.
Yes, please.
Okay. I don't know if the rest of you can read the other questions, and all of you can answer the question you can. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
you go first, please.
Okay. And if you let me, I prefer to answer the question in Spanish because it's easier for me.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay. Hay un compañero.
There is a colleague, Michel Raimundo, who's asking how he can continue his training or his career as a teacher at the university. He's a math teacher. Well, that depends on each country. Usually, in order to become a university professor, you need to follow some PhD studies, a degree, and after you complete this PhD, then you can start working as a researcher or as a professor. But the best way to learn about that is at the university itself, where you would like to pursue your studies, your university studies, your graduate study, this PhD. And I honestly encourage you to do so if you like research, not just the academic world, but also the research world. Now, I think there was another question. Yes. Sukil says that in the research, I think she's referring to the study I mentioned. She said that professors mentioned that Braille transcript should be used when available. And she's asking what is the percentage of this possibility, bearing in mind the influence of the digital world. It's true that the Braille transcriptions in recent years have been developed, up until I know, have been developed mainly for tests, for exams, because it is true that when professors and students have all the content in digital format, this facilitates accessibility of students with visual disabilities to the material, as this person can use something as simple as a screen reader. And this also allows, recording the voice of the professor in audio files. But for example, here in Spain, students with visual disability also have the support of mentors or tutors that come from the Spanish organization for the blind, ONCE, which develops a fantastic work in transcribing material. University itself or the faculty itself requests this transcription, especially when it comes to tests. But it is also true that the needs of students for Braille material are decreasing precisely because of the preeminence of digital materials. And I hope that I'm answering my question, the question that was directed to me. And I'm looking here at the chat to see if there are any questions that I would need to answer. I think that the rest of the questions are all directed at you. Well, I just found one for me. What is the most common degree followed by persons with visual disability? This is a question that came earlier. Normally, at least here in Spain, it is true that persons with visual disabilities tend to choose degrees or studies that are more related to social sciences, more often than choosing experimental sciences or technical areas. So where we have more students is usually in social sciences, for instance, in degrees that have to do with education, economics, law, legal studies. or languages as well, literature, everything that has to do with social science and humanities. There is a lower number of students enrolled in STEM subjects or in health-related careers. But of course, we have students with visual disabilities who go and study medicine, for instance, here in Spain. That exists. I see another question for me here. The question is whether there is a full curriculum to teach faculty or to help them develop inclusive classes. No. In Spain, as in many other countries, the problem with faculty, with university professors, is that they are not required to follow a compulsory pedagogical training. I mentioned before the need for a PhD, and that is precisely the challenge. We find professors who are highly qualified for research, but not so qualified for teaching. So the problem is that the fact of receiving an inclusive training is still voluntary, is of a voluntary nature and depends on each professor. There we see aspects that are related more to the personality of the professor himself and the interest that he has for or she has for students. So the professor who has this interest will receive this training and will choose to receive this training. But those who are not interested won't be adequately trained to cater to students with disabilities. And that is a problem that we see right now at university.
Okay.
I think it's
all right.
Everything for
yeah.
me.
Okay. To add more information about ICVI higher education program in East Asia region, especially in 7 countries where the project has been implemented for years. Actually, ICVI has 2 international partners in the region to empower students with visual impairment. Firstly is the Nippon Foundation, and the second one is Overbrook International Program, which before we usually call it ONNET, Overbrook Nippon Network on Education Technology. So with these 2 partners, collaboration and cooperation in the region, we succeeded to empower students with visual impairment with technology skill, access to universities, and empower parents, teachers, as our colleagues just presented. And also the unique thing of our collaboration in East Asia region is before the pandemic, annually we have country coordinator meeting, which discuss programs supported by those 2 ICVI international partners, the Nippon Foundation as well as ONNET or Overbrook International Program. Within this country coordinator meeting, usually the country coordinators share their experience and learn each other, so we make progress all together. Even if a country has strength in one area, other countries are able to learn from this country who has advanced in particular area. For example, RBI is also have strength in developing learning strategy in STEM, for example. So other countries could also learn from RBI how to develop accessible learning strategy for students with visual impairment in STEM. And Phúc just also presented in Vietnam, Sao Mai Computer Center also helped our colleagues in Myanmar to have the Burmese TTS. This is also very strong collaboration between two country partners to support our friends in Myanmar, so they have TTS in their own language currently. Okay, is there any more question for Philippines and Vietnam? We have, I think, 5 minutes more before we end this session. Ami, is there any question for you and Phu?
Yes. I see many comments.
No more.
Okay. This is from Miss Monique.
Uh-huh.
Hi, I just want to know how can you help your sighted mathematics professor with the right approach of teaching or explaining your mathematics subject if you are a blind student?
Okay. The question is for RBI, I think. Yes, Ami, please answer the question. And perhaps Phuc also, if you have experience on that, you can add more then. Please, Ami.
We in the Philippines, we usually, as mentioned earlier by Mr. Lucas, we usually provide training for college professors as to how they can accommodate students with visual impairment in their university. Recently, the focus of the training is on modifying their teaching strategies, providing accommodation and modification to access mathematics curriculum. So we have introduced the materials produced by ICEBI, Mathematics Made Easy, which you can actually download through the website of ICEBI, icebi.org. You can download that, and we usually provide that materials to the teachers. It's for free. You can just download it. Now ICEBI also share some videos as to actually how you can see the adaptations or modification made by teachers so that blind students can access or understand the math concept, which is very abstract for someone like me. We also provide videos for the professors. Aside from the available materials from ICEBI, we also produce some videos which includes testimonies of professors who are actually teaching mathematics for regular students with a blind student in the classroom. So that's how we do it in the Philippines, but maybe Phuc can also provide additional information. Phuc?
Yeah. Phuc, if you have experience, please.
I think I just because Ami already mentioned about the ICEBI math documents. That is a very useful resource for the sighted mathematics teachers. But also one point that because we had one blind student studying mathematics at the university, and I think besides how to talk to the university faculties, but I think that the students should cooperate more with their mathematics professors, let them know and maybe request them to provide the materials in advance, so the blind students can have more time to prepare or to convert it into accessible formats to read. Because same in Vietnam, many math professors don't understand how to convey the mathematical concepts for the blind students, especially in the higher education program.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Phúc and Ami. Maybe I can a little bit add what is currently happening in Indonesia, also supported by ICPI and Overbrook International Program. In Indonesia, we have a resource center named Mitra Netra Foundation. This resource center developed guideline book on math learning strategy for students with visual impairment. And this guideline book is used for math regular teachers from grade 1 until grade 12. In this guideline book, the books provide information how teachers should develop particular strategy if it is needed to teach math concept to students with visual impairment in regular classroom, included how to develop low cost teaching material, for example. And the book were designed as simple as possible to be easily read or understood even by math regular teachers in remote areas. Besides that, Mitra Netra Foundation also developed mathematics software named Math MBC. This software has two functions. Firstly, it could be used to produce math braille books for students. And the second one, this software could be used as a bridge, communication bridge between students with visual impairment who need to work with their computer in doing math, and math regular teachers who could not read braille. So by the usage of this software, they could read the work or assignments done by students with visual impairment in doing their math assignments with the uses of this software. At the same time, Mitra Netra Foundation also developed cooperation with the Ministry of Education and provincial government agency on education to provide in-service training for math regular teachers. And the next step, what this foundation is now start developing is that they develop also cooperation with the universities who have math training department. So the cooperation is the purpose of the cooperation is to insert the topic of math learning strategy for students with visual impairment within the curriculum of math teacher training department. So students, university students who are learning in math teacher training department, we should know in advance that when they have students with visual impairment in the future, they know already how to modify the teaching or learning process for their students with visual impairment. So they are not confused anymore if they have to handle or face students with visual impairment. For university students, blind university students, when they have math in regular classroom, usually in Indonesia, the professor provide them with extra coaching to have more time for the blind student to understand or to learn the math concept, or the resource centers are the one who provide the extra coaching for university students, as well as students from high school and elementary school. Oh, okay, everybody. I think our time is up now. We have finished our session. Thank you for all the speakers Ami Mojica and Marlo Lucas from RBI, the Philippines, Đặng Hoài Phúc, Executive Director of Sao Mai Computer Center, Vietnam, and Professor Rafael Carvalho from Spain. Thank you for your time to share your experience and achievement in the area of higher education for students with visual impairment. I do hope that this session is very fruitful for you who are participate in, and please enjoy the rest of the World Blindness Summit that will still going on until end of June. This is the first virtual global event conducted for people with visual impairment and the supporters in many areas that need to be discussed, need to be shared. And let's make this event, global virtual event, be very successful, and we can speak our voice louder to the world that people with visual impairment are here in the world. The number of people with visual impairment is not little, not few. We have many, about 285 million based on WHO database, and most of them living in developing countries where education system are still underdeveloped. So let's work together hand in hand to make schools and university to become more inclusive for everybody to study, included for our students with visual impairment. As the moderator of this session, I would like to once again thank to you all for participating in this session. See you next in the other session with other interesting topics. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ami, Fu.
Thank you, Arya. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rafael.
Yeah.
Pictures.
Recording stopped.